I think we're going to go with our next two. Our next two are 7963. That's 7963 and 7864. 7864. If you hear your number called, if you could just raise your hand until somebody sees you.
Hi. Number one, I just want to say that I personally worked really hard on this last election, and I feel that we were kind of betrayed by not the Democrats not being honest with our original choice of Biden. The other thing I want to ask of you is we lost. And instead of completely criticizing everything that the Republicans have done, have the Democrats learned anything? Is there anything that the Democrats are going to change? Because we all know in this room we just can't go in the direction we're going right now. It's absolutely critical to democracy. That's all.
Could I, if you want to take that?
Yeah, so I will answer this as a representative. This is an official event, so I can't go into campaigns, and I won't talk about campaigns. But I can tell you that there are two people on this stage right now that actually led the charge to address that issue when we saw warning signs last year that spoke out and tried to say things were not moving in the right direction, and tried to right the ship. Because my obligation is to all of you. It's to the Constitution. It's to the country. It's not to any one person, any one elected official. And I take that obligation extremely seriously, and I always will. So that's one. Two is, I'll just speak to policy, right? Not the politics, and I'm not going to talk campaigns, but policy-wise, there are areas where we have to do better. There just are, right? And we can't, I grew up in a working class family. I started working construction to help pay my way through college. I've been employed since I was 15, worked fast food. And what I can tell you is, if we want to be the party of the working class, which is why I'm a Democrat, right? Because I don't want government to solve my problems for me. I don't want the answers to be given to me. What I want is a fair shake. I want a level playing field and the ability to work hard and to achieve something, and I don't want the game to be rigged. That's why I'm a Democrat. I just want things to be fair. It's that simple for me. And in so many places around the country, places where I grew up, that is not the case. The American dream is out of reach. The American dream, the ability to buy a home, to send your kids to college, for your kids and grandkids' life to be better than your own, is actually dead for so many Americans. Right? And that anger and that desperation is real, and we have to pay attention to it. And in so many places around the country, where in large cities in particular, working Americans are being forced out because they can't afford to live. You can't afford to buy a home. You can't afford transportation. And we have to be honest that we haven't done enough in a lot of ways. We haven't leaned in hard enough on affordable housing, on real mass transit and transportation costs, on really breaking through on the issue of equitable education, right? And we have to break through on universal health care, of which Michael's been a leader, right? We have to lean in and do more and be more aggressive about it, absolutely. And that is a lesson that we all should take to heart. And I'm always somebody that says, you're not always going to agree with me. There are, I'm sure, issues that, most of you disagree with me on one thing, on something that comes up. But you're going to know where I stand. I'm going to be honest with you and answer questions, and I'm going to keep an open mind, and I'm going to try to lead together. Right? This idea of servant leadership, of which I talk so much about, is this notion that there is no one woman or man or leader that has all the answers, right? That's what Donald Trump tries to get people to think. Right? That's just not going to work anymore. It's 2025. The challenges we face as a country and community are too complicated, too deep-rooted for any one person to have all the answers and to know all of it. That's why we have to collaboratively address it and go on that journey together. Right? That is the solution, and that's where I think I am and the people that have ascribed to my leadership philosophy, whether they be Democrats or Republicans, are also at.
I want to, I'm trying to find, thank you. Thank you for that question, by the way. And in all the town halls that I've done so far, nobody has asked the question that you just did. And I want to thank Jason for his leadership, which was extraordinary in that moment and somewhat rare, unique, really. And I want to paint a little bit of a picture of where I was, too. I spent 3 days before the debate on the eastern plains of Colorado, in the deepest red parts of Colorado, having conversations, among other things, about the Farm Bill, the effect of social media on the mental health of kids in communities all over the state. These are places where no matter what I do, I'll never get 20 or 30%, more than 20 or 30% of the vote because of the partisan nature of our political system, but where I think it's important to be, just like it's important to be right here. And I was there not to talk about politics, but to listen. And I was listening to the concerns that they have about how hard it is to find young people, for example, to do the jobs that Jason was talking about when he was growing up. Then I came home, and I was on the phone. Susan and I were sitting in our living room, and I was on the phone. She and I were on the phone with our 3 daughters, who shockingly are now 25, 24, and 20 years old. And they were watching the debate with us, but they were watching it, from home. And they're like, "Dad, this is crazy." And then I spent 3 days on the western slope of Colorado in much more blue territory than but people were saying, "Michael, you have to go back and say something." Because I saw this in my mom, I saw this in my dad. And the following Tuesday, I was sitting in the Democratic caucus in the Senate, and when it came time for me to talk, I said, if we don't change the top of the ticket, the Democrats are going to lose in a landslide in this election. And the consequence of that is that we will be if we lose this election to President Trump, we will be the first generation in American history to leave less opportunity, not more, to the people coming after it. And there's a lot of talk these days about threats to our democracy. That is the fundamental threat to our democracy. That lack of economic opportunity that Jason is talking about and is so focused on. And it's that we need to address. And to be honest, this isn't political either, but let me just say, it's not Trump's fault that he won the election. And your question about, how the Democratic Party lost twice to somebody who took away, for example, the first civil right that we've lost since Reconstruction, a woman's right to choose. Like, how is it? I would have thought that would have disqualified him out of 330 million Americans, because nobody else has done that. And yet we weren't able to win because I think we were not able to create a convincing focus on our desire to strengthen the middle class in this country, to re-energize our middle class, and to make sure people have real opportunity. Jason talked about our education system. What was our proposal on that? Free college? In Colorado, people are a lot more interested in knowing that when their kids graduate from high school, they can earn a living wage, not the minimum wage. That they have the ability to be able to do what Jason did, graduating from high school. And we don't do that. We can't do that as a state or a country. We can't do what any other industrialized country can do with the kids that are graduating from high school. There isn't a country in the industrialized world where people are fighting to have mental health care for their kids, except for the United States of America. The good news is that the list is not, there is a long list of stuff that we could be fighting for that would, I think, put the American people in a position of picking something other than chaos which is what we have picked, because people understandably are so angry about an economy that's not supporting themselves and their families. I didn't vote for Trump. I thought he'd be a terrible president. He's been far worse than I ever thought he would be. He really has. I mean, I had the lowest expectations you could possibly have, and he has exceeded them. If you can do that, he has. He has. But if we don't get our act together, it's not about Trump. It's about how do we drive a stake through Trumpism. That's what we need to do as a nation, and we can.